Welcome to today's Explainer. We are about to unpack one of the absolute greatest, most haunting, and honestly, totally unresolved maritime mysteries in Indian history. We're looking at a story that combines the immense, unpredictable power of the ocean with a really ambitious dream, a dream that ended in absolute tragedy. Today, we're going to map out exactly what happened to the MV Kairali, which was this massive cargo vessel that simply vanished without a trace, taking 51 souls with it. Okay, let's dive into this. I want to transport you to June 30th, 1979. Picture this. We are inside a ridiculously lavish five-star hotel right in the port city of Mormugao, Goa. It's a grand farewell party. There's imported liquor flowing, a huge feast, a live orchestra playing deafening music, and guests are just dancing the night away. You've got high-ranking bureaucrats, shipping ministry officials, and foreign delegates all celebrating the grand success of the Kerala Shipping Corporation. But there was one man sitting all alone in the corner of that lively hall, completely lost in dread. That man was Captain Das Joseph, the master of the MV Kairali. While everyone else was oblivious, cheering to financial milestones, the captain's heart was pounding. He knew exactly the kind of nightmare waiting for them in the dark waters outside. Part 1. A celebration before disaster. Because you see, that glittering party was a stark contrast to the terrifying reality. Just a few nautical miles away at wharf number 9, the MV Kairali was sitting under the harsh glare of floodlights, loaded for a voyage that was basically doomed before it even began. It was literally a ticking time bomb of mechanical failures and dangerous weather. First off, the ship's radar, this crucial Japanese-made Furuno system, was completely broken. They were waiting on a spare motor from Japan, but management, who were super worried about the high cost of keeping the ship docked, ordered the captain to sail completely blind. Second, a hydraulic pump failure meant one of the main cargo hatches couldn't even be sealed properly. Third, they were loading 20,358 metric tons of iron ore into the hull. And finally, the southwest monsoon was at its absolute peak, guaranteeing violent storms, zero visibility, and massive swells. Captain Joseph had literally written to management begging them to delay the voyage, but tragically, he was overruled. Part 2. Kerala's grand maritime dream. To really understand the magnitude of this loss, we have to step back and look at why the MV Kairali meant so much to the state of Kerala in the first place. Kerala has this incredible maritime legacy stretching back thousands of years. I mean, ancient ports like Maziras were global hubs for the spice trade. But post-independence, while other Indian states were building modern shipping fleets, Kerala kind of lagged behind. So to reclaim that ancient glory, the government established the Kerala Shipping Corporation in 1974. 2 years later, they poured an immense 5.81 crore rupees into purchasing their very first massive cargo vessel. They renamed it the MV Kairali, and it instantly became the ultimate symbol of Kerala's grand maritime dream. Let's move to and see how this builds. You know, the ship they bought wasn't actually built for iron ore to begin with. Its previous life was as a Norwegian oil tanker built in 1967, known as the Saga's Oscar Sverdrup. To fit Kerala's specific needs, the whole thing had to be retrofitted. They converted it from a liquid-carrying oil tanker into a bulk carrier designed to hold massive, incredibly heavy mounds of solid iron ore. This was a major, major overhaul, but it was rigorously inspected. Inspectors from the prestigious Lloyd's of London came down, evaluated the retrofits, and gave it the green light, granting it a brand new load line certificate for international cross-ocean voyages. Part 3. The Missing Days. So the ship was this point of immense pride. It was retrofitted, loaded up, and sent off directly into the monsoon. To understand the timeline and the chilling silence that followed, you really have to grasp where the ship was heading. The Kairali's route took it from Goa, across the Arabian Sea, toward Djibouti in Africa to refuel, and eventually on to East Germany. When the ship sent its final communications, it was roughly 600 nautical miles off the coast. That puts it squarely out in the high seas. This is way beyond India's 200 nautical mile exclusive economic zone. In this territory, the Arabian Basin drops to terrifying depths. We're talking up to 5,000 meters deep. There is no coastal radar out there, and trying to conduct a rescue operation in these deep international waters during a raging monsoon is literally like looking for a needle in a haystack. Let's walk through the exact, agonizingly tense timeline of those final days. On July 1st, 1979, the Kairali radios in a temporary fix to a broken boiler pipe. On July 3rd, at exactly 8:55 p.m., Captain Joseph sends what would be his very last radio message. He confirms their position and requests fuel arrangements for their scheduled stop in Djibouti. Then, days pass in total radio silence. July 8th arrives, the day the ship was supposed to dock in Djibouti, and nothing. The port confirms the ship never arrived. Now, you think alarm bells would immediately ring, right? But incredibly, it isn't until July 15th, a full 9 days after the missed arrival and 12 days after the last message, that the Indian Navy is officially notified to even begin a search. 72 hours versus 13 days. Under standard maritime guidelines, if a ship goes missing, the families of the crew are supposed to be notified within 72 hours. It's absolutely crucial. But because of mind-boggling bureaucratic delays and confusion, the families of the Kairali's crew were kept completely in the dark for nearly 13 days. They literally only found out when local newspapers started running stories about a missing ship. Part 4: Theories, Myths, and Investigations. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how the void of information was instantly filled with wild rumors. As days turned into weeks with absolutely zero wreckage found over the Arabian Sea, no oil slicks, no lifeboats, no bodies, people got desperate. For months, a massive rumor circulated that the ship hadn't actually sunk, but had been hijacked by modern pirates and forced to dock somewhere along the African coast or near the island of Socotra. And of course, families clung to this. It gave them hope that their loved ones were still alive, just held hostage. But the objective facts completely dismantled this. Naval intelligence rigorously investigated these claims and traced the mysterious radio signals back to entirely different ships, like a vessel named Kairali. There was zero evidence that Kairali ever made a detour. Then came the darker theories involving greed. Let's just break these down impartially. Claim number 1. The ship was intentionally scuttled to collect a massive 6 crore rupee insurance payout. Well, the objective fact is that the Kerala Shipping Corporation was entirely government-owned. Any payout would just go straight back into the state treasury, not into any corrupt individual's pocket. Claim number 2. It was sunk to cover up corruption during its initial purchase from Norway. The fact here is that sinking a ship doesn't erase the paperwork of the transaction. There is no logical motive to deliberately sacrifice 51 lives when the paper trail remains completely intact for investigators to find anyway. To finally get to the truth, the government appointed the Justice Menon Commission. They spent 3 full years investigating and mapped out a conclusive step-by-step chain of events. First, severe monsoon weather hit, and without a working radar, the captains simply couldn't navigate around the worst of it. Second, remember that faulty cargo hatch? Yeah, the rough seas almost certainly poured massive amounts of water straight through it and into the cargo hold. Third, this caused something called cargo liquefaction, the dry iron ore mixed with the water, turning into a heavy, shifting sludge that completely destroyed the ship's center of gravity. And finally, destabilized and battered by storms, the ship inevitably capsized, plunging straight down into the abyss. So the crucial takeaway here is that it wasn't just a broken radar. It was a catastrophic chain reaction of mechanical failures and natural forces that doomed the Kairali. Part 5. The enduring human tragedy. We've covered the mechanical failures, the tense timelines, and the investigations. But we really have to remember the core of this story. 51. I just want us to pause and reflect on this number for a moment. This isn't just a maritime statistic. This represents 48 hardworking crew members. It represents a deeply experienced captain. It represents the chief engineer's wife, Ramani, and their young son, Ito, who were just tagging along for the journey. 51 people who vanished in an instant, leaving absolutely no trace behind. To anchor this tragedy in real emotion, we have to remember the faces behind those numbers. There was 6-year-old Godwin Jose. When the news finally broke, his mother took him to the shipping office. He walked in, holding his mother's hand, genuinely hoping he would see his father, a crew member, walking out to greet him. Then there was Gilbert Paikada, just 22 years old. He was a brilliant mechanical engineering graduate who had literally just secured admission for his master's degree, but he chose to take a job on the Kairali instead. His bright future was just swallowed by the sea. For decades, these families formed action councils, knocked on politicians' doors, and waited for closure and minimal compensation that took agonizingly long to arrive. Perhaps nothing captures this pain more than the story of Captain Joseph's wife, Mario Cuddy. She affectionately called her husband Papa. When the ship disappeared, the company actually stopped paying his salary after just 2 months, leaving her to raise their children entirely alone. Despite receiving official documents stating the ship was lost, her hope outlasted the decades. She kept waiting, kept believing that by some absolute miracle, her beloved papa would walk through the door. She held on to that hope until her dying breath, passing away in 2010, 31 years after the ship vanished. The Kerala Shipping Corporation eventually received their insurance payout. And sure, maritime protocols became much stricter after this, but the Kairali itself remains untouched. As we wrap up today, I want to leave you with this provocative thought. 47 years later, what haunting secrets remain forever buried 5,000 meters deep in the Arabian Sea? We have our logical deductions, but the ocean has never surrendered a single piece of the Kairali to confirm them. It remains a ghost story of the deep. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I hope it provided you with a clear, engaging look at this tragic and fascinating piece of history. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.
And with that, we come to the end of today's story. The mystery of MV Kairali continues to intrigue people even today, leaving behind more questions than answers. Was it a tragic accident, extreme weather, or something else entirely? The truth may never be fully known. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with your friends. Your support motivates us to bring you more fascinating historical mysteries, forgotten stories, and unexplained events from around the world.